Hi, I'm Paul Feiner, Greenburgh Town Supervisor.
I'm Pauline Mosley. Welcome to the show.
And our town is so fortunate because we have outstanding young people living in our community. Today we're going to interview a star and a future star, Ellice Lim, and she did a research project on immigrant parental support from Greenburgh families. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
What grade are you in?
I'm a junior at Edgemont High School.
Terrific. And could you tell us, are you active in a lot of activities in school?
Yeah, I'm part of a science research class, which is where I formulated my study, and also my science research class. They give us a lot of competition opportunities to share a project, and so I shared this project to Somers, which is a regional competition, and I won second place by this research.
That's amazing.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Can you share with our viewing audience the motivation behind doing this science project and also the name of the science project?
Yeah, so
Wonderful.
it's parental support associated with second generation immigrants, teens' mental health, specifically anxiety and depression. And growing up as a second generation immigrant, and I was also raised by first generation immigrant parents from Korea. Also, our Westchester community is filled with immigrant families. So growing up, I had a lot of friends who are also second generation immigrants. And I noticed that we had similar mental health struggles. And a main driver when we talked about it was parental support, lack of parental support. So my project started with a reflection on my own struggles and the struggles I've noticed in others. And I wanted to contribute research that could help future second generation teens.
That is really very impressive. What was, how did you do your research?
I conducted it at home. It was a self-designed experiment, but I had help of my mentors who helped me formulate my research questions, which was what is the relationship between support from first generation parents and their teens' depression and anxiety. That was my main one. And then I added, what about cultural groups? What are the difference between cultural groups, Asian, Latino, age, and also by gender? So I used surveys. I conducted online and in-person ones. So I would send a consent form because the age group I did were teens and they need parents to consent for them to fill out the survey. And also the survey online, and I reached out to people, organizations, also Paul Feiner about my research, who helped distribute my survey throughout the area. And also in person, I would go to Target or the outdoor malls, wherever, and I would come in with in-person forms to give out and invite people in person to fill out my form. So
Yeah, I had another question because I've noticed we honor a lot of students at town board meetings, and many of the students we honored, they're all brilliant, like you, and many of them are from the Asian community. They're also second generation. Is there a lot of pressure on from your parents to be exceptional, and does that contribute to anxiety because you have to succeed?
yeah, so a major part of my study was on cultural groups, specifically focused on Latino and Asians, second generation immigrants. And I looked at their cultural norms, and I found that Asian parents may focus more on an academic informational support, and also is a cultural norm to suppress particular emotions. And so it's less of emotional support, which is listening intently, emotional expressiveness, and and that's what I found about Asians. So, and I also found about Latinos that they have a huge family value called familioso, which is basically valuing family closeness and togetherness, which means they would look at emotional support more than informational support.
Wow.
Right. So in your research, when you were doing this, it's so interesting What were some of the factors that contributed to the depression and the anxiety of these subpopulations? Like, what did you see emerge from the research? Like, what causes students to be depressed, or teens to be depressed, or have anxiety? Like, what did you find out?
I looked at specifically like parental support, and I found that parental support is actually associated with teens' anxiety and depression. And I found that the higher the parental support is towards their teens, the lower their depression and anxiety got. So that was one of the causes, would be a lack of parental support.
Right, but if they're putting pressure on you to succeed, does that create also anxiety as well?
Yes, but I didn't look into that specifically. That's definitely like a future research area I want to look at, like more specifically at the cultural norms and how that specifically affects their teens' anxiety and depression. But for this one, I focus more on social support from parents, how that can affect their mental health.
Do you compare, say, second generation students with students whose parents lived, say, in the community for generations? Is there
That
like
would be like third generation.
right, or fourth generation, right?
Yeah, but I chose to do second generation immigrants because when I was researching on background and how I should like develop my study, I found this idea of immigrant paradox, which is basically like this idea that immigrants actually have better mental health outcomes than the non-immigrants, which is really interesting. That's why it's called the immigrant paradox. And when I was researching more on second generation immigrants specifically, I found that the immigrant paradox actually disappears and they no longer have this health advantage. So that made me wonder, oh, so second generation immigrants actually have worse mental health than the first generation immigrants. So that made me want to study more specifically on second generation.
That is great. In terms of like recruiting, you had to recruit participants who would be interviewed. What were some of the challenges? Was it easy to get students to open up?
Well, I definitely clarified in my study that this is all confidential and none of their information will be released. And it was very minimal risk. I also emphasized that it's like totally confidential. Like it's not going to be open to anyone. But I did have some issues specifically with Latinos who I reached out to the organization and they didn't want to accept my survey because of the risk of deportation. So that's why I had to go in person to malls and like areas where my target groups would be so that I can hand in surveys in person and I would get more Latino participants.
Did you have to like analyze what malls to go to, and so that
I frequently go to the malls I visited and I observed that there are a lot of Latinos hanging around in that mall. So I thought that would be the best place to go with my in-person forms and try to recruit.
when you went to the mall, did you get participation?
Yeah, I approached them, I talked to them in my study, and obviously I asked them, this is completely voluntary, you don't have to, and this is all confidential, and most of the time they did agree to the survey.
Well, after you graduate, what do you think your goals in life will be? What would you like to do?
I definitely want to pursue psychology because my study is in the field of behavioral science.
That is great. And is anyone in your family psychologist or?
No, my dad is an epidemiologist, but I don't have any psychologists in the family.
Wait, so how many students were in the study total?
I had 102.
Wow.
I had around 60 Asians and 42 Latinos.
That's an excellent sample size.
That is.
That's really fantastic to have that a big sample size of students. And from that sample size, what was the conclusion? Like, from this the study, what did you see that when there's no support or very little support, these students have a high tendency to be depressed and anxious? Is that what the study revealed?
Yeah. So I used a questionnaire, which is called Perceived Parental Support, and it measures how much parental support the teens receive based on like a set of questions. It's from a scale of 0 to 4, which is 4 being the highest. And the average for Asians the average for emotional support was 3.08, which is pretty high. And informational support was 3.28, which is also high. And I found that when I measured their depression and anxiety through their own questionnaires, I found that the teens all had minimal or mild depression or an anxiety, which supports my hypothesis, so that the more parental support there is, the less like severe their anxiety and depression are.
That is, so interesting. Do the parents of the participants help the participants, or what role do they play?
They just had to fill out the consent form. I only asked the teens about. I thought they would be more honest about how much parental support they receive.
Right. Now, I wanted with the two subgroups that you did, were there any single parents? Like, does it matter if the child has two parents that are supporting it as opposed to one parent, or it just means a parent has to be supportive? It doesn't matter, or was that not a factor in your study?
That wasn't a factor in my study, although I did look at multiple factors such as socioeconomic status, which is basically parents' education level, and also how the household income of the children of the household. And I also looked at gender and age. I found that females tend to have more emotional support, and ages, I found it was really interesting that younger ages had more anxiety than depression, and the older teens had more depression and anxiety. For socioeconomic status, I found that most of the teens who had lower anxiety and depression had annual household income of 100,000 or more. So it shows that higher the socioeconomic status, the better their mental health would be.
If people want to read the study, is it available?
Not yet. I'm finished my research paper, and I'll be competing in WestF.
Congratulations.
So it's just like I go to competitions in my research, but hopefully I can get it published one day.
Right, because I'm sort of thinking that it would have been nice when I post this video on the town website to have like a link to the paper, if you're willing to do that, or it could be done sometime in the future, because I'm sure there's a lot of people who would love to read the report, and this is such an important issue because
very
it's
important
really
issue.
In the news, and Greenburgh is a diverse community. What about the school district? Did you get a lot of help from the faculty at Edgemont High School?
Yeah, my teacher for science research definitely helped me a lot in developing my study and also analyzing my data and writing my paper in general. She's been a huge help with my study.
And there's a lot of other students at Edgemont that are competing for different competitions, I guess. How did you decide what to compete in?
Yeah, so there is a whole process in my science research class where when we first join it, she gives us a list of articles from each field to read, and we rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, how much we enjoyed it. And out of all the articles I read, I found that behavioral science was the most interesting to me, so I decided to pursue that.
That is, I'm really so impressed with you. In terms of, parents' support, do different cultures have different levels of support?
Yeah, so I found that Latinos were more impacted by social support than the Asians. And again, like I mentioned before, the cultural norm suggests that Latinos have a higher need for intimacy and also family closeness. It's one of their values. So it makes sense why they will be more impacted.
I was just sort of thinking of another question.
Sure.
What about, Greenburgh's a large town. So you have Edgemont, you have Ardsley with a lot of Asians. You have Elmsford, Tarrytown that may not have as many. Did you break down your study in terms of the different neighborhoods in the town? And like say, do some students who go to Scarsdale, are they have a different quality of life than say a student who goes to another neighborhood?
I didn't look specifically at neighborhoods, but I did do a broader whole Westchester County and also New York City. So I got my data from.
So do you think that there's any that you could basically say, what if you live in this area and there's a lot of people from the same heritage, that will have a different impact on somebody's life?
I think so. Based on the type of neighborhood they live in, they could also receive different types of support based on what's the norm in that community. And I think each neighborhood might have different communities based on culture. Definitely.
Does Edgemont have a large Korean population?
I don't know about Korean, but I would say Asians in general.
So did your study, so interesting, did your study pinpoint or itemize what specifically constitute parental support? So for instance, other ethnicities and other students that are not Asian or Latino that may not have, their cultural differences may not lend themselves to parental support, or maybe someone that is struggling, parents are struggling, don't know how to support a teen. Does your study reveal what is a good, quote unquote, a good parental support for teens that can be emulated so other households can give that support to teens so that we can minimize mental health, depression, and minimize anxiety for teens? So what would you say is a good model for parents in general to support teens?
Definitely, there are many different types of social support. And I looked specifically at emotional support and informational support. Mm-hmm. I also looked at which one is more effective than the other.
Right.
And I found that emotional support is slightly more effective than informational support. Even though both had an effect on lowering the teen's anxiety and depression, emotional support, which is expressing your emotions to your child, listening intently, just being present for them, definitely was more effective in lowering their anxiety.
So you're saying a parent should listen, which is something it may sound so simple, but it's so effective because most parents, like myself, we work, we're busy, you come home, you just say, how was your homework, how was your day? But you're saying that to give more time to the child, sit down and give them eye contact and say, how did your day go, Ellice? Tell me about it. What are you struggling with? That's what you're saying is emotional support, giving them that emotion.
Compared to informational support, which is more of an academic guidance, giving them resources, oh, you should do this and this, leading them in a certain direction. That's called informational support. And although that also could be helpful in lowering their depression and anxiety, emotional support turned out to be more effective.
And is there a frequency that you'd recommend that the study indicates for this support, the emotional support and informational support? Should be done once a week, or the more frequent it is done, the more effective it'll be in lowering these mental health challenges? What did your study reveal?
So my results again revealed that overall higher levels of parental support. So I would say as often as you can give it. It doesn't there's no once a week or twice a week schedule. It's more the more often you give it, there's a better chance that your teen's mental health could be lowered.
Does the school district do enough in terms of providing students who have mental health issues with the counseling that they need?
Yeah, we have school counselors who are always open to mental health struggles from students. And also we have a school club called P2P, which is peer-to-peer. And it's a club that dedicates to helping students with mental health struggles. And
do a lot of kids take advantage of it so far?
Yeah, I'm part of it as well, and we do like different activities throughout the year to help mitigate the mental health.
Great. In terms of, since I'm in government, is there anything that you would recommend in terms of legislatively what government should do that we're not doing? They have a Westchester County Office of Mental Health. The state has mental health offices. If you were like governor, what would you do?
I think definitely I would want to educate the parents, the first generation immigrant parents, on how important parental support is for their children's mental health. So I would suggest sufficient trainings, like interventions, for these first generation parents to help them understand there's many different types of social support, but emotional support might be a little bit more effective for your teen. And also maybe help learn them strategies on how to express empathy, listen actively, and just practice these skills with their teens.
What would happen if somebody comes from a family like that's a broken family where it's a single mother or the parents are working constantly, yet they may be success driven and they don't have the time. How does a student, and they say, oh, I'm empathetic, but they really aren't putting in what they need to do?
The child then can look to other resources such as therapy or any trusted adult. It doesn't necessarily have to be the parent to give this social support. The parental support is actually just social support, but social support from parents is parental support. So I think just receiving emotional support, informational support from any trusted adult would be helpful and effective.
Wow, this is such an impactful study, and it's so needed. And I'm so happy you chose to do a deep dive into this, because mental health mental health awareness is a very real issue. And knowing that parents, like you said, this parent support and emotional support, I've learned so much today, can be so impactful for kids is like a revelation, that you've brought this study to light. Now, do you see yourself doing this study again with maybe other different ethnicities to see to compare and contrast what they're, to see if they still have a depression or anxiety or some other symptom of mental illness? Is that on the horizon for you?
Definitely, one of my future research I want to do is to explore other cultural groups, because Asian and Latino are just two out of many.
Right.
But I chose specifically to do Asian and Latino because I saw the immigrants coming into U.S.
Right.
Those two groups were the most, the biggest immigrant groups. So I really want to focus on them, just because they're the majority of.
Right.
Also, Westchester County, there's a lot of Asian immigrants and Latino immigrants, also in New York City. So I just want to focus on those two. But for future studies, I also want to focus on African Americans, also maybe comparing immigrants from non-immigrants and how they differ from the control group.
For Indian students too.
Yeah, Indian is
students.
Asian though.
Oh, that's right. That's considered. That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. It's all under. That's right.
That's great. So I really appreciate it. Have you been in touch at all with any other government bodies?
Not yet, but that's definitely what I want to do in the future, is to reach out to local governments and also local schools and just talk about what I found from my research and what might be helpful in the future.
And so you have a bunch of next steps.
Yeah, so I have WestF coming up, which is a competition which can get you into ISEF, which is international competition for studies. And hopefully I can try to branch out my study to even more people, let more people know about the study and my results of it.
Since you're entering these very, very prestigious competitions, and you already was one of the winners of a previous competition, does that create anxiety also, that you feel that you have to win? Like when if you're driven is there also peer pressure? Like if you know somebody just won, say, a Regeneron Award, and you didn't win it, is there, pressure? Gosh, I'm not good enough. Why did they? You might not say to them, but why did
The
they win?
competition, yeah.
So my main motivation in going to this competition is like less of like just winning it, but also just like spreading awareness about my study. Like I take these competitions as a chance to, there's a lot of like scientists as judges at WestF, so I thought like maybe sharing and bringing awareness to my studies to them, maybe they can also help
So
me.
that's a really great motive, because your goal is
Yeah,
not
that's
just to have a medal, but basically to help other professionals decide what to do,
Yeah.
and to help the community treat their kids better. That's very, very commendable. So that I'm really impressed with you, and I
Yeah,
want
it's
to wish you the
amazing.
best of luck. And we're like so fortunate to have you
Very fortunate.
in our town.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the fabulous work you've done in researching this area and bringing more thought to how we can support our youth. Parents can support the youth. You're
Yeah.
doing a fabulous job.
So I have a feeling that I'm going to be reading a lot about you in the future. And
Absolutely.
maybe I'll put on my resume that I once interviewed you. That will be one of the highlights of my life. So good. So thanks a lot, and I wish you the best of luck, and we'll keep in touch. And maybe at some point in the beginning of the year, you could attend a town board meeting and do like a 5-minute presentation, just
A
explain to
training.
the town board, what you've done, because I think the whole community and people in government would be really interested in this major contribution to student mental health issues.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.